Hi, my name is Ryan. I run new growth strategies and I help businesses work more efficiently by automating workflows with AI and N8N and things like that. But today, I decided as a little side project I was going to help a friend of mine who runs a entrepreneurs group here around where I live. I live in Alkmaar, which is a little bit north of Amsterdam in the Netherlands, and I'm a part of this digital builders group where we're all just a bunch of guys and gals that are into it and learning more about it and collaborating with each other on building digital solutions. And so this group is called the Alkmaar Builders, and it's a great group. I mean, it's free, it's awesome, great networking, all that, everything you'd want in like a member group. Everyone's vetted, it's free, it's great, it's everything you would want in a member group. The thing is, because it's like super lean and there's no budget, because there's no dues being collected, there's literally no money coming in. This is a very new project around here. There's a lot of inefficiencies in the back end. So my friend who runs this said to my friend who runs this that I would help build this into a more robust, modern platform, and moving it away from the Lovable plus Google Sheets framework to something a little bit more robust using WordPress, WooCommerce, PMPro, and a better managed hosting solution, and all kind of for free. It's about the same as what a paid subscription would cost for Lovable. So we're basically going to take this whole platform here, including the directory and the community, and we are going to move it onto a demo website. And I thought I already got started with this, so I thought I would just turn the camera on and bring you along for the ride, because this is what I've done now several times to potential clients that I work with. Before every project, I'll put one of these together on like a fake website that actually works, so that my clients can see what this would actually look like without it having to be put on their normal website, so they can try before they buy. And so because I had some time today, I thought I would just do the same thing for this platform. So what I've gone ahead and done is procured a domain that I already owned and set up on SiteGround, and just cleared it out and to start from scratch. I already installed WooCommerce and WordPress onto this website, configured the domain settings, and that is stuff like giving and assigning an SSL certificate and enforcing HTTP technical stuff, blah blah blah, DNS editing, blah 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 blah, stuff that really doesn't matter right now. What you can already see is I've gone ahead and installed Paid Memberships Pro, which is the back end of the member management that we'll be using for this website. There's WooCommerce payments for later. Like I don't want to necessarily monetize this group. I don't want it to turn into some. We agreed that we didn't want to turn it into some like super formalized like networking group or trade association or anything like that. Something kind of like that, but just super small scale, something easy for anybody to join without having to pay like a ton of money, especially for those that are just hobbyists, because that's a lot of who's in here are just builders who are interested. But anyway, that's all beside the point. The rest of it is just standard boilerplate, what comes with a SiteGround WordPress website, but PM as well. I've also gone ahead and installed a couple other add-ons like bbPress and BuddyPress. They're plugins, but they also integrate with PMPro directly, so we can have some more community features like direct messaging and messaging boards and forums and things like that as members-only content, members-only features. What I've gone ahead to do to set this up, because I'm basically just, I set up all this backend and basically having Claude Code just run with it and build on everything that I've already spec'd out. So the way that I set this up is if I go to users and I open my own user, because I have a S enforce and an SSL certificate activated for this website, I can create an application password. And what I did is I just created a new one and gave it a safe space for Claude Code in my computer to access, so that it can access the back end of my WordPress website using the WordPress API. And then in SiteGround, if you go over to devs and key areas, I did a similar thing, opened up an SSH key for Claude Code and gave it all the credentials in a safe space within my local area. So if I pull the session down here, which you can see, I have Claude Code going in the CLI. So if I pull the session down, then, and we go back to what we're already working on here. So if we scroll back to what I was working on just a little bit ago, this was all the initial setup. Let's see. So this is just confirming that SSH and WordPress API was working. Here we go. Current state. So it had correctly identified that there were 5 plugins. PMPro, WooCommerce, but nothing else was created beyond that. Presented an initial scope, and then I gave it a quick update, and then it just started speccing out the rest with no premium add-ons. That spec all looked good, so I gave it the green light to proceed, and now it's just creating pages, setting everything up. It's using the existing website too, this one as a reference. And it's using the existing Lovable. It's using the existing site as a reference. It's on Lovable, and I didn't get access to it, but we're just going to basically try to replicate it as close as we can with just the Claude Code CLI. So while that continues, I want to talk a little bit about Paid Memberships Pro. Now, I've already set this up on a couple other websites for associations as a demo and in production. And so what's really nice about this is it's like a association management software, which if you're familiar with things like MemberClicks, helps associations and similar member groups like chambers of commerce or groups like this keep everything really organized, keep memberships and the member experience organized. There's a ton of add-ons too. There's a ton of like content features you can add. Plus this is built directly into WordPress. So if your association or member group is run on WordPress with low or no budget, this is a great solution for you. And it has a free self-hosted version, so that's what we're going to be using, which means we have to forego some premium add-ons, but for this case, that's going to be perfectly fine. But one of the things I really like about this is the reporting is super simple, super easy to understand. If you only have enough time to or patience or whatever, to just quickly scroll through and look things over super quickly without having to go through all the detailed reports, you have that option as well. But that's pretty much how I set this whole thing up. So again, we're using Claude Code in the CLI, and it's already been given a bunch of context and information beforehand about what to do, how to build around Paid Memberships Pro. We installed a couple add-ons for some unique community features, and we gave Claude Code access to WordPress via the WordPress API by giving an app password from the primary user, which is me, and then we also gave it SSH permissions into SiteGround. The difference there is the WordPress API allows then Claude Code to interact with the content directly, as well as some of the stuff back here, whereas for something like uploading a theme or uploading more pages in bulk, it might actually make more sense to just upload it into like the file manager remotely, in which case using SSH is a great way for Claude to be able to do this. For what it's worth, for security reasons, because obviously this isn't as safe as just not having AI in the first place or setting up an MCP server. Every time that I run one of these sessions and I close it out, immediately delete the key and create a new one for next time. Keeping keys rotated is always a good safe practice, especially if IP address allow listing isn't something like you have that in SiteGround, but if that's not an option, then that's the safest way to go about this, other than just not giving SSH and API access to Claude Code, for example. So when we come back, I will have this all set up and I'll walk you through what this looks like for this networking group. All right, just got an update from Claude that everything's done. This is about 30 minutes of work with one clarifying question in there. What it was able to do was get the infrastructure, membership, pages, and community features all set up in the back end via the WordPress API and the SiteGround SSH access. So that's great. There's a few things that I still need to do, but let's take a look at what the website looks like in its current state. So it's rough. but that's okay. We're not fully focused on UI at the moment. We are fully focused on just adapting the existing platform into something that could be a really nice tool for members, like a demo. So we still have some setup to do. Forums are there. That's great. And then we've also got join and login configured. So, okay. So let's see. So one thing that I'm going to do here is add everything to a handoff for next session. This is just for context management. So if you ever use Claude Code or anything in like a CLI like Gemini or Codex, you'll see sometimes like an auto compact coming in like 10 or something like that. Unfortunately, it kind of dilutes the output quality because it adds, every time you converse or send a message or receive a message from one of these tools, you basically double how much recall there has to be in the back end. So basically the next thing that I wanted to do was create a handoff document so I can give this to another session, because this is going to start auto compacting pretty soon. And every time I switch tasks or switch big contexts, I clear and start over in a new conversation just to keep context at a minimum. As you may or may not already know, every time you send a message, you add context to the conversation. And the more context you add, the more tokens it consumes. But it also dilutes the output quality because it has to read through more context, more instructions or things like that. And that's where you start getting like major deviation. So I try to cut that off as soon as possible. So as soon as I'm done with a major task, then I'll add everything to a handoff document, clear context, and then recall that handoff document in another session. That way, this is the basic principle of session persistent memory, where between different sessions you have the same memory, and it optimizes output quality while minimizing token usage or maximizing token utilization. So everything's now saved to memory. Make it a handoff.md file. That'll be the best way to do this. This is what I do for all my projects, especially if they're like long building sessions or anything like that. Anytime a building cycle or something is complete, then add everything to a handoff document. Or if it's a really big project, memories, update the Claude MD file, clear context, and then using natural language like read the handoff MD file for context, like something as simple as that will help it recall everything from the last session while keeping the context window in the current session minimal. Great. So we'll clear. Like I said, you can just use natural language for this next step, like reference this handoff file for context and instructions, send that, and what we expect the output to be is it recalls everything, goes through the document, recalls everything, and then it has its instructions, and then I could just say something like good, proceed, or something like that, or even just proceed works. Actually, you know what I'm going to do before we run this is I'm going to activate Claude Fable 5. We're using Fable 5, baby. I'm still on the max plan right now, so we can get away with this. But the same fashion, I'm going to give it a natural language instruction so we can recall context and instructions. I would like you to start this session by doing some deep research and prep on a UI for this website. What's really nice about Fable 5 is these instructions were good enough. Like, it didn't have to confirm everything to review it. Because I said start off by doing some deep research, that gives it the idea of, oh, okay, I'm just going to go ahead and like look everything up. Like the Fable 5 model, it works super autonomously. You got to kind of use it carefully and at your own discretion. I mean, I've been working with AI tools for the better part of 3 years now on a pretty much full-time daily basis. So I feel very comfortable with the environment I've already created for this to work in so that it can very reasonably and automatically accomplish the tasks it needs to do without me having to sit here and approve everything. I also regularly give instructions to create review quality check documents so that I can read through them and make sure everything is still aligning with the instructions I gave or the vision that I have. Again, to catch any like deviation, especially in like long running sessions, if the context window starts building up quite a lot, then that can be that deviation issue can be quite large. And so in any case, it's a good habit to have, I think, to constantly be reviewing and checking work, quality controlling, being that human in the loop, as you probably hear all the time, and reviewing everything. But right now what's happening is there's 3 research agents running around and basically just gathering some info about building a UI and analyzing the reference sites. Like this is one that I also built as a past project in the same way, and my own website, things like that. And as well as apparently some community UX patterns for other comparable similar platforms that we're building here in this session. All right, so the Fable 5 site audit is done. Found some really cool stuff. That's great. So this is what I was talking about the UI UX brief. It's one of those documents that is a thing that I would review in depth, and then it's got some open decisions for me and for my colleague, which is great. And it proposes a fully spec'd out project pipeline for what it's going to focus on next, which is also good if I want to delegate this to a different agent than something that's like Fable 5. Like if I want to delegate the rest of the build to like Opus, then at least like it has a little bit better of an idea as to how to, like what to execute on. One of the shortcomings with Opus is it isn't as introspective, if you will, as the Fable 5 model is. So its planning and execution isn't as good as its like Fable 5 is really good for planning and Opus is fine for execution. I think, at least. Ideally Fable 5 for everything, but I digress. So for that one, I already went through everything, so that's good. Approve. Forums are going to be gated. Yes. Everything about payments, WooCommerce, because we are not going to build spec anything out that will be paid in any capacity the foreseeable future. Wanted it available as a future spec to sell merch, e.g. Let's see, we have building data open. Copy the logo from the actual site. Put this all into a comprehensive spec sheet so we can delegate all tasks to independent Opus agents. After, we will spin up agents for review approval. All right, so we got another build spec that we can review. Everything looks good to me. So we are not doing anything paid. No emails yet. Yeah, everything looks pretty good to me. So we're gonna go ahead and close that out. All approved. Dispatch at your discretion. This is going to be a very long running task, so I will come back to this when we are done. The time right now is 2:59 p.m. and we are about 35 minutes into this build in total. I'm sorry. The time is now 2:59, almost 3 o'clock. We are about 45 minutes into this build in total. So when I come back, this will all be done. Show you the time, show you how long it takes, and where we're at, where to go from there. All right, we're back. It is now 11:30 a.m. the next day. Fable 5 went away, so I gave up for the day and came back to this the following day. So here we go. Everything's all done. Big reveal in 3, 2, 1. Ta-da! So we have fully replicated the original Alkmaar Builders site. Let's go back to the home page and take a look. So one thing that's maybe a little bit different is this uses brighter themes. I opted for something a little bit more. Yep. So what I added that this didn't have is, okay, let me backtrack a little bit. What the existing website already had was a directory of companies, okay? However, it doesn't have a member directory. Not all the members in the member directory are listed on here because not every member is an owner of a company. So these are all the companies that got listed. Website after being vetted and approved by the group leader. That was kind of it. So, and then of course there's the application process, which is a Google form. So what I did instead is using the PMPro platform, I made there's a full member directory which is members only access, but the company's page is public and everybody's connected, so that all the companies that did list are still getting a backlink or a link reference. And this is fully public. Everyone's got their own page, just like the original site does. There's also things like forums and activity, which I'll dive into here in a minute, and an events page, which the existing site didn't have. I went ahead and set up a test event, so just to see what this looks like, because while the events are publicly facing, to be able to RSVP for them, you still have to be a member, whether it's free or not. So if we go to the join process, there's just one membership level and it's free. It's just the builder, whatever. But everything's still native within the website, which is great. Super basic information because that's kind of all we need. So once that goes through, then it goes to the group founder to vet and approve in the back end. Let's take a look at what that looks like. So because this is all WordPress native, for me, like if I'm the moderator of this, then everything I can see is just within this memberships dashboard. Again, native in WordPress, super easy to use. We already went through all this, so I won't spend too much time on it, but there's also event management. I also implemented forums and topics that are members only access. So if I go back to the main website, now that I'm signed in, I can actually see these forums. What's really nice is this is all persistent, unlike the WhatsApp group, which is not persistent. So let's say you're a new member. The member groups have maybe been active for like 6 months, and we've got hundreds of messages in the WhatsApp group with people introducing each other, having casual conversations, meeting up for coffee, things like that. If you're a new member and you join, you don't get to see all the old message history like you would in Telegram, for instance. So this is a great place for people to introduce themselves, talk about what they're building, and anybody can access it at any time, regardless of when they signed up. And posting on here is just like posting into like a subreddit, which I think is awesome. And as an admin, it's all super easy to moderate. Then I've also got activities, which I haven't like really set up yet, but if someone wants to like say what's going on or who wants to meet for coffee, you have that ability. It's not like direct messaging or anything like that, but it's like persistent messaging with an RSS feed that you can connect to it, which I think is kind of funny. You can also mention people specifically, I think. Yeah, you just publicly message them. Oh, just at Joey. Yeah, just like that. So that's cool. Small feature, but it's one of those things that I think makes quite a big difference. Because you can have, like the WhatsApp group is fine for like casual everyday conversation that doesn't need to be persistent, but for things that might be more important, like discussions or shared resources or things like that, like I think it's nice to be able to access that no matter when you join the group. If I go back to the members page, that I can see the directory here. Again, if I'm not logged in here with a vetted member profile, I can't see this. And for everybody that joins, like if I open up Wen's profile, for example, they would be able to go in and update everything on the back end. I can update it for them as well, just through here. Just awesome. And then finally, events. If I go back to this coffee chat event, now I can RSVP for it now that I'm signed in as a member. I can bring guests if I want. Boom. And I set it so there's only 10 slots available. If I reload that, so you can see now there's already 2 people going, 8 spots left, 5 days left to RSVP. Yeah. Profile and account management, super easy, super basic. Because there's no like multi-tier management for a group like this, this is pretty straightforward. But now everybody has a centralized place to access important resources and manage their group membership, set like notification preferences and things like that. And this is kind of the most minimal viable version of this. Like there's so much room to expand into things like podcasting and courses and other kind of resources, direct WhatsApp group integrations and things like that. Like the list goes on and on and on and on. And the best part is till now, everything's been free except for the website hosting and domain, which was already being paid for via Lovable anyway. So the incremental cost on top, there's no additional cost on top of what's already being paid for here. It's just doing everything in a different platform and to a more modern professional scale. So, and all this is to say that this is super easy to set up just with Claude Code and a strong vision with some good reference points to point it all in the right direction. Fable 5 helped a lot for having deep research capability and multitasking. So I'm really happy with how this turned out. Hopefully the group leader is also happy about this. I guess we'll see. But that's everything I'm going to talk about in this video. So I hope this was helpful for you. If you're starting up a member group or you want to take your existing member group to the next level, this is a great way to do that. If you have any questions or struggling with any of it, let me know in the comments, add me on LinkedIn, or send me an email. I'd be happy to chat and help you out with it as best I can. See you next time. Cheers.